Okay, and please pardon my sexy sound. Okay, just now when I was covering, I feel that there are chills coming in. Well, I'm not sure whether I'll faint, but let's see how they go. If I faint, okay, please call 995 on my behalf. Okay, I don't think my dog is able to help me. Okay, so with that, okay, let's go through a quick recap of what have we learned last week. Okay, maybe you guys can utilize, you can unmute if you like. Okay, if not, okay, you can utilize the chat function and type out as many things as you like. Okay, what topic was covered last week? Come on, quick. Help Mr. Teo. Mr. Teo can't be speaking for a long time. I still have an evening class later. We have learned inflation. Okay, someone else brought up demand pool. Cost push inflation. Anything else? Remember, I covered different perspectives, right? I don't think I use the word gradual. I use the word sustained increase in general price level. Has to be sustained increase. Well, I also covered deflation and nobody brought this up, strangely. Okay, but today we're just doing a quick recap. Okay, and we also learned some of the cause of inflation, right? Okay, what is one cause of inflation? What is a consequence of inflation? Anybody still remember? Yeah, I hope you guys are not using the book now. See, whenever I say not using the book, people will be looking down. Sure, whatever works. Okay, come, give me one consequence of inflation. So we know that what happens to your purchasing power when there's inflation? What happens to purchasing power? Okay, we build from here together. Seems like all of you are not very familiar with this, huh? Okay, purchasing power is eroded or diminishes. So in the future, okay, or in the present moment, you can purchase lesser goods and services, right? Okay, remember, okay, what is goods and services related to? What is undesirable when you can consume lesser quantity of goods and services? Okay, all your favorite. We learned this a couple of weeks back. Okay, please don't return stuff to me. Okay, good. Okay, lower material standard of living. Okay, so this is how you want to build. Okay, so I want you all to bookmark this cause of inflation. It seems to me that it is not very sturdy for now. Okay, so with that, okay, I will kickstart a quiz. Okay, I will need you to let me see. Link copied. I post a link on the ID on the chat function. What are you eating, Elijah? Can you share with Mr. Teo? I'm hungry. I haven't eaten lunch yet. Hey, go ahead and eat. Okay, I'm not the standard kind of tutor that okay, eat whatever. Moss burger. Okay, sure. Okay, make sure you don't stain your keyboard. Okay. And make sure you can function by clicking on the mouse. Okay, Ashley? The last stressful? Being the last? Okay, ready? Okay, so I have a tip for all of you. Is the music very irritating? Do you want me to tune down the music? I personally find the music quite irritating, but sure, fine. Okay, my tip for all of you is there are a lot of case study or data interpretation questions, especially rate of change. I want you guys to be exceptionally careful when you see rate of change questions or percentage change questions. Yeah? Okay, good luck. Okay, and any questions that you get wrong, okay, please mark it down. Okay, I see whether we got a chance to cover this together. Not a very promising start. Okay, so your CPI has to be the highest, okay, when you are at the last year, because it's all positive growth. Okay, CPI was the lowest, okay, at 2015. Okay, so buck up everyone. Okay, I hope this is a very good start. Okay, a very good jump start for all of you. Okay, looks like our Moss Burger King is on the run. Okay, this one I need a diagram later. Okay, so I'll KIV for now. Okay, but seems like most of you did not address that. Oh, Nas, I think you got locked out, is it, or something? Yeah. Okay, rate of inflation falling is not equals to deflation. Okay, last week I covered this. Okay, rate of inflation falling is disinflation. Okay, it's falling at a faster, slower rate. Oh, okay. I was unable to join the game. Strange, I saw your name just now. Anyway, just participate silently. Okay, any questions that you don't know, just type it out later. Okay. Read carefully. This one very, very crucial. All the diagram questions. Okay, things that I test here are all case study related. Okay, looks like this question is no go. This question is hard. But I've covered this concept before. Okay, so this does not involve a diagram, so I'll quickly show you how to actually address this. Okay, so whenever you are given growth rates, okay, you have to make estimation. Okay, okay, this is what I mean by estimation. Okay, your real growth rate. Okay, your GDP real growth is approximately equals to nominal growth. Okay, subtracting inflation rate. Inflation rate is your price growth. You're following me? Okay, so you realize that only the first option, okay, which is I think country W, gives you a positive growth. Okay, after addressing for these two. Okay, so this is fairly popular in case studies. Okay, when they give you growth rates and they ask you to approximate. Okay, so pay attention to such question. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. So far we have the two diagram questions that are there. Okay, later we'll address that. Okay, another no-go questions for diagram. So I will address that later. So 3 questions on diagram. Okay, there's a good reason why this is 90 seconds. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I went to fill up my water. As it seems, okay, the calculation questions are not so straightforward. Okay, I believe I covered this concept somewhere last week as well. Okay, so I just want you all to look at your book one more time. Okay, you can calculate your inflation rate using this row. Okay, so it's just calculation. Okay, there is nothing extra. Okay, so this is what I mean by calculation may be involved in case studies. Okay, so make sure you have your calculator with you. Yeah, I didn't see anyone calculating, so I was a little bit concerned back then. Alright, okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay, which is likely the second last question. Okay, any questions that you're not sure, please ask me. Okay, please type it out. Okay, if you don't want people to. Okay, the question profile of this is the same as the first question, first few. Okay, you realize that this is about price growth. Okay, so the first option is definitely out. Okay, because it is still positive price growth throughout. Okay, so you realize that every year the price is growing. Okay, but the price is growing at a slower rate. Okay, so the only reasonable answer is the lowest in the first year. Okay, or is the highest in the last year. That's why I say it's similar to the earlier profile. Huh? Okay, cost of living has fallen. Okay, this can only occur when there is deflation. Okay. Alright, well done, Moss Burger King. I got locked out. Okay, can sure. Okay, so I just want to quickly run through which are the difficult questions. Back to yeah, I don't want this. Okay. Which are the questions that you guys got wrong? Have you all got it? Okay, maybe I'll just use this to address. It's all the diagram question, right? Okay, so for this, you can actually see that Costa Rica is the correct answer. Okay, you can see that. Okay, Costa Rica has experienced price growth in 2015. Okay, 2016 was 0%. Okay, the rest of the answers are incorrect. Okay, so another question that, yes, this is the correct one. Okay, so you often see that this is a very typical popular question. Okay, so you realize that the y-axis is inflation rate. Okay, so they ask you about the general price level. They did not ask you about your price growth. Okay, so general price level has to be consistently rising. Okay, no matter what is the slope, from the first year to the third year, so long as there is positive inflation rate, your general price level has to be increasing. It is only the fourth year that it crosses the 0%. Then it fell. So look out for the 0%. So a lot of students will say the third year they fell. This is not true. Is everyone clear? Important, very, very important. Not sure, later you type out and ask me. Likewise, for this question, they ask you, which shows a falling cost of living throughout the year. Falling cost of living can only occur when there is deflation. So the question is specific throughout the years. So you realize that question A and B, the inflation rate is positive. No doubt question B experienced disinflation. So your cost of living is still generally increasing for A and B. For part C, only partially correct. Why? Because only half the time you experience deflation. So part D is the correct answer. So with that, I think generally okay already for this question. So I am going to move on to today's topic. So if any questions for me, please ask me. Questions that you got it wrong earlier that you're not sure, please stay back and ask. So with that, I am going to move on to today's objective. I hope God is going to bless me to survive despite having a very itchy throat. Can y'all hear the change in sound quality? Or or it's the same to you? Not really. Good. Whatever works. So these are the 7 objectives that I will be covering. So today we'll be looking at economic growth. I just like to have a show of hands or a show of whatever typing. Have you all learned economic growth? So every school cover different goals in different pace. So most of y'all started. So y'all should have some understanding of what is economic growth. Maybe you guys want to kickstart and share with me. What do you understand by economic growth? What have you learned in school? And then I will cater the wish and the remaining session to add on to what you have. What have you learned? For those who have learned, some of you said yes, some say started. So it's okay, just type whatever that you know, whatever that you understand. Before we hop into the main session. Okay, actual growth, potential growth, okay. What else? Sustained growth, okay. Seems like we are having bits and parts of from here and there lah. Okay, so I just want to go through these 7 objectives. Okay, we'll define what is economic growth. Okay, we'll identify the determinants of economic growth. In fact, some of you have already correctly identified the determinants, which is actual growth and potential growth already. So this is what we know as sustained growth. Later on, I'm also going to share with you how your first year coursework on PPC is going to matter here. Okay, there are ways of how PPC can be tested. Okay, just curious, do you all still remember what is the full name of PPC? If you still remember, please type it out. Oh yes, and do you all realize that Mr. Teo's teeth got a lot whiter? I went for dental treatment earlier on. I believe it's PPC, not PCC. Without looking at the book, right? Okay, seems like it's not very encouraging. Okay, all of you are banished to my first year class. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Okay, we'll be looking at cost benefit of economic growth. Item 5 is very important. Okay, later on I will cover the 3 sisters of economic growth. Okay, so I'll address that. I'll briefly illustrate the policies to promote economic growth. And lastly, for exam purpose. So overall, this topic is not difficult. But there are a lot of diagram illustrations. You have to be familiar with drawing. Okay? So having said that, I'm going to kickstart. FYI, PPC is production possibility curve. Okay, production possibility curve. So with that, I'm going to move on to the definition. Okay, please join me with the book if you have. Okay, so for the viewers out there, this will be our guidebook that we'll be using. Do you have the book with you? Have, Okay, so economic growth, different schools have different definition. So stick to your school. Okay, so it simply refers to the continuous increase in the economy's capacity to produce more goods and services over a given time. Okay, so how do we normally calculate your economic growth? Okay, just now we actually briefly covered. Okay, we can use real GDP growth. Okay, or nominal GDP growth. Okay, all these two are the proxies to calculate economic growth. Okay, just like inflation, we use CPI. Okay, every indicator or every goal will have an indicator to measure that. All right. So I am going to move on to the determinants of economic growth. Okay, so we are going to draw this later. Don't worry about that. Okay, I just want you all to join me at page 72. Okay, so just now someone actually brought up, actual growth and potential growth. Okay, so for economic growth to happen, these two must happen together. Okay, so we have actual and potential growth. Okay, most of the time actual growth will be there, but sometimes potential growth may materialize. Okay, so just now someone brought up, actual is realized increase in GDP, potential is an increase in your full capacity, sure. Okay, so you can refer to the definition for actual growth and potential growth. Okay, so for actual growth, most of the time, 80 to 90%, it is due to 80. Okay, I put 80%. Okay, later on, I'm going to show another variation that was not in the book. Okay, 80%. Okay, so any changes or any increase in your C, I, G, X minus M is going to lead to actual growth, because there's an increase in the real national income. So some key things to look out for when you illustrate actual growth. Okay, I'm so sorry, the book has not done a very good work in the illustration work. Okay, so I'm despite multiple reminders to the publisher. Okay, it's not wrong, okay, this diagram, but there's a more factual way to illustrate actual growth. Okay, remember, okay, actual growth, okay, the emphasis of actual growth happens at the Keynesian region. Okay, this is where you experience the full multiplier process. Okay, so next time or later on during the practice question, when you are illustrating actual growth, make sure you illustrate at the Keynesian region. Okay, and then later on we probably require the full multiplier process that I covered a couple of lessons back. Okay, we'll see how it goes here. Okay, this is probably one of our first time doing a economic growth case study. Okay, so okay, you realize that at the Keynesian region, you will experience the full multiplier process and your income will increase by multiple rounds. So this is why I don't like illustration at the intermediate process, the intermediate region. Okay, the intermediate region is, although factually right, okay, but the emphasis is on price increase or inflation. Okay, so this is something that we don't need for actual growth. Okay, so later on, keep your shifting to the left side. Okay, and exploit the Keynesian region. Is everyone clear? Alright, and there's another variation for actual growth. Okay, and okay, you guys can insert this into the book. Okay, so this revolves around shifting of your SRAS downwards. Okay, so you can see that as a result of a downward shift in your SRAS or your SRAS increasing, okay, this will lead to an increase in your real national income. Alright, so such instances, like I say, they don't come out often, but it could be. Okay, so you cannot, when you're looking out for sources for actual growth, you cannot be blatantly or you cannot be looking one-sided for AD factors, okay, because there are AS factors that could lead to actual growth. Later on, I'll distinguish between actual and potential. Okay, so you guys can jot this down first. Okay, so for potential is fairly straightforward. Okay, it simply illustrates the increase in your production capacity. Okay, so any growth that results in an increase in your production capacity, okay, you can see this, okay, will result in potential growth. So earlier on, the two instances, you realize that your potential capacity remains fixed. Okay, same for this. Okay, I'm going to go through okay, before I go through some of the variations from some some interesting schools, okay, I just want to quickly illustrate. Okay, these are not difficult concepts, but they do require a lot of drawing. Okay, so when economic growth is tested, okay, most of the time, okay, we are looking at these two happening concurrently. Okay, so these two together will be what we call sustained growth. Okay, so you have to combine these two diagrams together. Okay, so most of the time these two diagrams are combined together. Okay, and you realize that your income level will shift up at least 2 times. Okay, so just make a mental note. There's a good chance that you need to combine these two. Okay, and pay attention to the price level. Okay, so although there may be an initial increase in your price level, okay, depending on how you draw your AD, okay, but if you are at the if you include the potential growth, then okay, the increase in the production capacity will elevate the supply side bottleneck. Okay, then your price level will go down. Okay, so in a nutshell, if you forget what I'm saying, always bring in these two, AG and PG together. Okay, when the question requires sustained growth. Clear? Now I'm going to go through some interesting models. Okay, this is an approach that is populated in RI. Okay, I'm not sure other schools uses this. Okay, but for my RI students, okay, if your school uses these, then I'll just quickly touch on it. You got to refer to your school notes. So some of the schools, okay, they also show economic or sustained growth through this. Okay, so this will revolve around a downward shift and a rightward shift in the AS curve. So it's a bowl shape increase. Okay, so you can actually see this. Sustained growth. Okay, with an increase in your real output and your production capacity. Right, so I'm not sure, okay, who down here actually seen this diagram before. Have y'all seen this diagram? Was it covered in school? Okay, if it's not used in school, I don't recommend you to use. Okay, we stick to what we have learned. Okay, this is the more conventional approach. Okay, but there could be cases where, okay, this comes in handy. Okay, when there is a simultaneous fall in cost of production and an increase in your quantity of your capital. Then in that case, okay, you can use an outward and downward shift in your AS curve. Okay, good so far? Alright, so likewise, if there's any questions for me, please type it out. Okay, so like I've said, it's not a difficult concept, but a lot of drawing is required. Okay, so later on there will also be drawings required. Okay, please don't mess it up. Right, I'd like you to look at PPC. Okay, everyone please look at page 2. So there are cases where economic growth is tested from the PPC perspective. So make sure you're able to you're able to illustrate what is PPC. Okay, PPC, like I've said earlier, stands for production possibility curve. Okay, I just do a quick recap. Okay, point A stands for underutilized. Point B stands for full utilization. Point C stands for unattainable. Okay, so the fastest way to illustrate, okay, economic growth, okay, is to stick up these 3 points. From point A to point B. Okay, what do you think this kind of economic growth is? For those who have learned. Okay, it's actual. I call it AG. Moving on, I'll use AG and PG. Okay, so this will be the short form that I will be using. Okay, so we can liken this to the concept of what we have covered earlier on. Okay, under the Keynesian region. You see that? Okay, so you realize that underutilized is the Keynesian region. Okay, we'll move towards the full employment output. Okay, so this is fairly straightforward. So how are we going to move from point B to point C? We know that point C is unattainable. Okay, if you totally forget about this topic, please recap. Okay, in our first year clip. Okay, it's in your folder. Okay, can we move to point C? Hang on. Hello, I'm asking a question. How? Okay, point C stands for scarcity, right? Okay, so unless, okay, we are going to incur trade-off or opportunity cost, then we cannot. So the only way point C can be attained is when your production possibility curve expands. Do we agree? Then we can produce at point C. So now, what kind of growth occurs when your production possibility curve expands? We can do by elimination, right? Actual growth already tested, already shown here. It has to be what? What kind of growth must this be? Okay, it must be potential growth. Okay, so pay attention, could happen one. Okay, so yeah, I hope this is a good refresher for all of you. Okay, let's hop back to macro side, page 74. Okay, we want to look at the cost and benefit for economic growth. And before that, I covered the different types of growth model first. Okay, different types of growth model. Okay, page 73. Okay, I think I get the order a bit wrong. Okay, page 73. Okay, remember, these are the three sisters of economic growth. Okay, please write this down. Sisters. Whenever I ask you sisters, I do require their name to come out. Okay, what is their name? Sustain, inclusive, sustainable. Okay. So sustain is the elder sister. Eldest. Okay, and these two are the younger sibling. So if the question did not specify what kind of economic growth, you can safely assume that this is a sustained growth. Okay? And sustained growth always has these two determinant or dual elements here, which is AG and PG. Clear? Okay, so this is the DNA that will be imprinted throughout all the sisters. But are all siblings the same? Okay, not the same. Okay, so you realize that the younger siblings, okay, will develop their own trait. So when we look at inclusive growth, okay, we are looking at growth with fairness involved of distribution of resources. So, okay, coincidentally this year, okay, you realize that Minister Wong mentioned GST increasing or something like that, right? Yeah. So in the future, we'll be relating inclusive growth, okay, to fiscal policy. Okay, and we will see, okay, how these two comes in hand. So I will not sidetrack too much. Okay, but I just want to point out, whatever that you remember today, make sure AG and PG sinks into your mind. Okay, everything else stems from AG and PG happening. Okay, so for inclusive growth, on top of AG and PG, we are also concerned about income distribution. Okay, are there any fairness in distribution of your resource? Okay, we are concerned about income equality or equity. So a lot of students get inclusive, they miss out the last ingredient. Okay, so make sure you get this right. Okay, I will talk about this more in the future. Okay, especially policies to attain this. Alright, so for the last part is about sustainable growth. Okay, a lot of students actually get sustainable growth mixed with sustained growth. Okay, this is what happens when you blindly memorize. So for sustainable and sustain, like I've said, sustain is the elder sister. Okay, sustainable, okay, will have one more element. Okay, so the element that we'll be concerned about is environmental degradation. If you look at the definition, we can see that a rate of growth that can be maintained without creating significant economic problems. Okay, and we are also looking at, okay, intergeneration wealth. Okay, how can we let resources, or how can we pass down resources to our future generation? Okay, so in this case, okay, if you realize, okay, at the rate at how are we going to burn fossil fuel, then in that case, okay, in the future there may not be fossil fuel for the future generation. Not only that, okay, it's going to cause extra problem, okay, by burning fossil fuel. Okay, this is going to lead to environmental degradation. Okay, so this third point, you realize that we have learned this before in micro. Okay, it's normally related to what topic? Environment. Do you still remember? What topic? Okay, good. Okay, negative externalities of production. Okay, so I want you all to pay attention. Okay, all these three, the inclusive and sustainable growth has a third element. So when you propose policies, okay, it is going to have a third policy to address them. Okay, so having said that, okay, I will quickly move on to, okay, the cost and benefit of growth. Okay, so it's not difficult. Okay, I just want to point out how to study. Okay, so last week, okay, we learned about benefits of price stability and cost of inflation. Remember we saw a paperclip? Where's the paperclip? Paperclip. See? Okay, I've covered last week that, okay, for certain topics there are mirror images that you have to be familiar about. Economic growth is significantly easy. Okay, there's no such variation. Okay, so all you need to know is, like what we have studied last week, break it down into the economic agents. Okay, you can see that consumer, firms, government. Okay, these are the three economic agents that you want to be concerned about that's going to benefit from economic growth. And you realize that this standard of living point is seen in inflation, right? You realize that this point can be used many times when we are talking about consequence, okay, based question. Okay, so it depends on how the question is phrased. Okay, if the question is phrased like a benefit, okay, then we can relate this to higher material standard of living, higher real national income and purchasing power. Okay, so all these few points are fairly straightforward. Okay, I'm not going to cover them. Okay, if you have a question for me, okay, you can drop it at the comment segment, or you can ping me privately. Okay, I'll spend more time to talk about that. I want to spend more time at the actual practice question, which has more value. Likewise, I want to cover the cost. The cost side is more problematic. Cost, consequence, okay, and concerns. Remember, I used the 3 C's down here last week. So they are used interchangeably. Okay, make sure you are able to distinguish what the question is asking. Alright, so you realize that I used the word trade-off here. Okay, the word trade-off, okay, is similar to the concept of opportunity cost. Okay, so when you pursue growth, what happens when there is excessive growth? Okay, especially when you have actual growth only, or your actual growth outpace your potential growth. Then in that case, we will have this problem. Okay, do you see this problem? When your actual growth is happening faster than your potential growth, or you're operating at the intermediate region. Okay, anyone knows what is this problem? Can you all type it out? I think we just covered this last week. Exactly. Okay, so you have to be careful, okay, that some kind of growth, okay, can result in inflation. Likewise, okay, there could be a trade-off between growth and sustainability. Okay, especially when resources are depleted. Okay, or resources or production of certain goods and services exhibits greenhouse gases. Okay, they are high pollution elements. Okay, you also got to be concerned about some kinds of growth are going to be lopsided in nature. Okay, it will only benefit a few people, especially the mega rich, ultra rich. And therefore there is a need to look at the income distribution, okay, and to look at the redistributing income. So I realize that we are learning all this. Okay, this is related to sustainable growth, right? Sustainable growth. That's why we learn sustainable growth. Okay, inclusive. That's why we are learning inclusive growth. We want to address the third element, okay, that cannot be captured under standard or the sustained economic growth model. Okay, you can also lump point 4 under sustained growth. Okay, current and future consumption. Okay, we are concerned about how your resource, okay, especially your fuel, okay, how we're not going to deplete them and how we're going to leave sufficient resource to, okay, the future generation. Okay, if we are presently over consuming, okay, it means that we have lesser for the future. So a hidden assumption here is all these cause, consequence, and concern stems from sustained growth. All right. I'm going to move on to the policy side. Okay, so for policy side, okay, fairly straightforward. I'm going to elaborate on them, okay, in depth in time to come. Okay, but I'm just going to briefly address. Okay, so remember, whatever policies that you promote must address the root cause of the problem or root problem. Okay, or the root determinant. So what are the determinants of economic growth, everyone? Okay, what are the two that we have learned? Can you all type it out one more time? Okay, I just want to assess all your understanding. Just now we spent so much time building that. Okay, good, Nat. Okay, AG and PG. So let's address the obvious first. Okay, so potential growth. Okay, what kind of policies do we need to promote potential growth? Have you all learned policies already? Okay, how can we increase our production capacity here? Okay, you may briefly want to write it at the side of the page. Okay, we will want to use supply side policies to increase your production capacity. Okay, this will be addressed in the future. For actual growth, remember, we need to look at which component of actual growth we want to illustrate. Remember, okay, that actual growth can be promoted by higher AD, okay, or a downward shift in your SRAS, right? Okay, see? Where is my diagram? Here. Okay, so this is the... I rub away the earlier part. Okay, it's a downward shift in your SRAS. Do you still remember the diagram? Okay, so for actual growth, okay, for policies to promote AD, okay, what kind of policies do we need to promote AD? Okay, I believe I covered this briefly. Do you still remember? It starts with the E word. Hey, if you didn't copy that down, please copy this. Okay, if not, I'll be very disappointed. Okay, X. Expansionary what? Covered this last week. Expansionary. Okay, expansionary demand side policies. Okay, so someone brought up monetary policy. Monetary policy is a form of demand side policy. Okay, same for fiscal policy. Okay, so generally policies that promote demand or AD, okay, will be promoting actual growth. Okay, so likewise, okay, we can also promote actual growth through a downward shift in your SRAS. Okay, so this is similarly attainable by supply side policy. Okay, so this one, like I've said, is not often tested. Okay, so you may not need to emphasize that much on this. Okay, so focus on these two. Okay, so in the future, I will cover these two in depth. There's a good reason why I kept emphasizing on knowing the problem, then you can propose the correct solution. Okay, so I'm going to quickly wrap up. Okay, so a few things to note. For exam purpose, okay, most candidates, okay, they often confuse between the three growth models. Okay, so make sure you know what the question is asking. Okay, so if the question is asking you about sustain, okay, actual and potential. If the question is asking about inclusive or sustainable, there should be a third element. And because there's a third element, okay, you realize that the policies that I mentioned earlier on, okay, is used to promote actual growth. Sorry, it's used to promote sustainable growth. Sustain. Okay, so for inclusive growth, okay, and sustainable growth, okay, this is your third policy. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly come out with some of the policies, okay, that you may be familiar. Okay, so for instance, we are concerned about environmental degradation, where to promote sustainable growth. So on top of AG and PG, okay, what have we learned in micro? Under market failure, how do we correct negative externalities of production? And then you see your micro coming back already. You see your micro policies coming back. Okay, what do you use? Okay, you use a tax or a carbon tax, right? Okay, so in fact, this policy was brought up by Professor James Lim in a recent Parliament debate. Okay, so you can go and Google. Okay, carbon tax being discussed here. Okay, inclusive growth. Okay, we are looking at redistribution of income. Okay, so you can see that. Okay, Minister Wong mentioned that there will be a GST offset package. Okay, there's going to be and this is highly redistributive in nature. Okay, so the lower income earners will receive GST offset packages. Okay, to offset the higher cost of living. So for sustainable and inclusive growth, there is the need of a third policy. Okay, so this is what I meant. Okay, so when you're revising inclusive and sustainable growth, you make sure you're familiar with some of the policies that were mentioned, especially sustainable. Okay, mainly they are related to negative externalities based question or based policies. Okay, and we will be learning conflict of goals in the future. Okay, conflict of goals simply means that when we achieve economic growth, okay, what are the trade-offs that we incur? Okay, so I think just now I gave you guys a brief teaser here already. Okay, the cost-benefit perspective. Where is that? Here. On top here, this part. Okay, this part. Okay, all these are trade-offs. Okay, and in the future, we'll be learning together what are the 4 goals that we have for the H2 students. Okay, and what are the potential conflicts between each of them. And the PPC perspective I've covered earlier on, right? Okay, so make sure you're able to illustrate actual and potential growth from PPC perspective. Alright, okay, so I am done. We will be heading for a break. Okay, so when we are back, okay, we'll hands-on on the time practice. Okay, this time practice is a little bit harder. Okay, maybe I'll guide you guys through. Yeah? Okay, so once you're back, turn on your webcam. Thanks.